Doom scrolling feels bad. You know you need to stop, but it feels impossible, despite the fact that you know that you're experiencing brain rot. Well, today I'm going to teach you how to give up doom scrolling for good so you can feel your life turn into one that feels aligned with one that you actually want to live, not one where your life feels ruled by a tiny little screen and strangers. So in this video, you're going to learn the implications of doom scrolling and therefore the brain rot that comes with it, what it means for you, how to stop it, what to do instead, why we doom scroll, and how to cultivate mindfulness. And that might seem a little woo-woo, but I promise it's the key to actually stopping. Because in order to make any sort of big change in your life, you need to know your why, and you need to have the right mindset. So I'm going to give you some really easy to implement practical tips so that way you can make this a reality in your life and frankly, so you can start living it. Hi and welcome. I'm Amanda, a busy full-time working mom who lives and thrives in her feminine energy and teaches women just like you to do the same despite all the masculine demands in your life. Below you'll find a link to sign up for my free newsletter. I share tips on how to be more aligned in your feminine energy, how to make your life easier and more enjoyable, and it's just a really great time and I'd love to have you there. We all know that doom scrolling is bad and it leads to brain rot, but the problem goes a lot deeper than just the time that we lose when we're doom scrolling. So first, let's talk about the implications of doom scrolling. Because you might think, it's not that bad, I'm just keeping up to date with what everyone's up to. And I'll say really quickly, if you don't care about this part, how to actually stop doom scrolling is coming up next, so you can just check the timestamps below and skip ahead if you'd like. One of the biggest implications of doom scrolling is that it kills our focus, and not just in the time in which we're actually literally scrolling. It kills our overall focus because the amount of dopamine hits that we're getting into the level and the extreme of it when we're just scrolling is intense, and our brain can't handle it. And it's not just about the focus that we lose in the moment when we're actually doing it. It makes long lasting effects that makes our overall general focus capabilities so much lower. It also steals joy from our life. And again, not just because we're busy scrolling, but when our brains get used to that level of dopamine hits, it makes it more difficult to enjoy the simple things in life. And that's really, really sad if you think about it. You're spending your time doom scrolling, which serves you zero. And not only is it taking away that time, but it's actually taking away your ability to truly enjoy what matters in your life. The low dopamine, simple things that make your life wonderful. Because what it does is it devalues lower dopamine activities that actually provide value in our life. Things like having a conversation on the phone with a friend, or cooking a meal from scratch without any distraction, just focusing on your senses. Those are the biggest implications of doom scrolling and why it's so important that you stop. That's what I need you to understand, is that you're not just trying to stop doom scrolling so that way you have more time in your life. It's not just about that 1 to 2 hours of day that you're actually actively scrolling. It's about how that affects your whole life. And that's huge. There are a lot of reasons why we doom scroll. And one of the simplest ways is that it's enjoyable and it's hard to stop, because social media apps, their whole priority is keeping us on the app and keeping us doom scrolling. And they spend ungodly amounts of money figuring out how to make that continue being the case. So on some level, it's not your fault, but it is in your control. And look, I get it. It's a very cheap and easy way to get that dopamine hit when you're looking for it. I understand. It used to be me. That used to be me. I used to pick up my phone like 100 times a day anytime I got bored or tired or slightly challenged or slightly bored or hungry. So a really big practice you can do is to journal on why you specifically doom scroll. And some questions that you can ask yourself and journal on are, what are your triggers? Is it boredom, procrastination, avoidance, something else? What are you avoiding when you scroll? What are you looking for when you scroll? Do you ever actually get whatever you were looking for when you set out on your doom scrolling session? Does it directly support a value that's important to you? And if your answer to that question was yes, is doom scrolling the best way to support that value? As a society at large, we've lost the art of delayed gratification, which is not a good thing at all, because there are actually some really significant benefits to delaying gratification and having self-control. Those benefits are things like increased focus, which we already talked about, confidence, the ability to get more important work done and to do more important things with our lives, and to just simply have more value in our life. It's sad, but our attention spans have become so damaged by things like doom scrolling in particular. And it's really sad, and it has bigger implications than most of us even realize. But the good news is that this video is all about how to stop it. So I gave my why, I gave that spiel. Now we're getting into the practical tips of how to actually stop it. So I feel pretty strongly about this. Cold turkey is way more effective than just easing off, because it's almost impossible to just ease yourself off. It's almost impossible to have that self-control, because we have damaged our self-control with the doom scrolling. So my very strong recommendation is just cut it out completely. Any app that you find entertaining, that you find you spending your time in, that's anything other than like the Kindle app where you're reading an ebook, it's gotta go. Delete the apps from your phone. You can keep the account so that way you can log in on your computer if you want to. I understand that it feels like too big of a move to like completely delete your social media. I get it, but you need to delete the apps from your phone, because you got to do it cold turkey. You just do. And one thing I'll say is that if you feel like you can't, if you're hearing me say this and you're like, oh my God, I could never delete Instagram off my phone. I can't live without TikTok. I promise I'll just scroll it for 15 minutes a day. If you're saying that to yourself, if that's what you're thinking, if that's what's going on in the old noggin up here, then that is all the more reason and confirmation that you absolutely must. The harder that it feels, the more heartburn it gives you, the more panicky feeling that you get from thinking about stopping and deleting these apps cold turkey is more proof that you absolutely must. And in other videos, you'll find, not from me, but from other people's videos on this topic, you'll find tips for things like timer apps or things that make it harder to access these things. But I'm not going to give you that advice, because I don't believe in it. I believe that it needs to be cold turkey, completely sever ties, and maybe after like a month when you feel completely healed, you have no desire to doom scroll, then maybe try adding some things back in and testing your limits with it. That's what I did. I did that. I failed. It took like a couple days before I was like catching myself scrolling more than I wanted to. And at that point, I was just like, it just needs to go. It is not worth me having this vice that does nothing to serve my life, and that I feel kind of ashamed to admit, but like a little helpless to staying away from. No digital thing should ever have that kind of hold on you. And if it does, you need to wash your hands clean of it. And the other thing too is it's easier when you don't have it. You don't have this internal battle. You don't need to exercise willpower. There's so much energy that goes into exercising willpower. Just make it so much easier on yourself and your whole life in general, and just take it away. Take it off your phone. It's easier, I promise. And other notes on how to avoid it other than just simply not doing it, but it's not just like doom scrolling Instagram, right? It's also about our phones in general, even the important things like text messages or phone calls coming in. Those things can still serve as distractions in our life, and so I just want to touch on that really quickly. My first piece of advice for not letting your phone rule your life is do not have your phone out in any sort of social situation. If you're playing with your kids, your phone is on the kitchen counter. If you're talking to your husband, your phone is on the kitchen counter. Whatever you're doing, if you're with important people in your life, which is everyone, because all humans deserve our attention and respect, don't have your phone out. Don't be that guy. No one likes that guy. Don't be that guy. And same goes for when you really need to focus on important work or really use that beautiful brain of yours. Don't have your phone anywhere near you, because having your phone near you and the temptation of scrolling or even just getting distracted by moderately important notifications, it's just getting in the way of what your higher self set out for you to do. Your higher self set out for you to accomplish XYZ, and you're gonna let a phone get in the way of that? No, girl. No, you're not. So now let's talk about what to do instead, because now you have all this free time if you're not doom scrolling, right? And I'll say really quickly, I am going to talk about the morning specifically coming up next because it deserves its own section. So I am going to address that. First, go outside. There's nothing better for the soul than getting outside into nature and giving it your full attention. No earbuds in, no looking at your phone, obviously, but just taking in the sights around you and the sounds and the smells and everything. Just focus on being present. And that's honestly a skill that you're going to have to learn and redevelop because we've all been so distracted by our phones. Our phones have taught us to not be present. Have apps on your phone that serve you and entertain you, but don't trap you. That's the key. Something like 2 examples that come to mind for me are my Kindle app because I read ebooks, but it's not something that's like gonna pull me away from something else I need to do. It's not going to trap me. And same with Pinterest. I don't scroll Pinterest endlessly beyond the time that I want to. But if I feel inspired to look for new recipes or something, then that's like a fun activity that I can do. But it doesn't give me the dopamine overload that doom scrolling would. An example of this is there are lots of recipes on Instagram Reels, for example. You can even use the search bar and get all these things, but the effects are very different. And I think if you start practicing this and become mindful of noticing these things, then the difference will become very obvious to you. You can exercise, go for a walk outside, or do an exercise that will help you become more aligned with your feminine energy, like yoga or dance or bar or Pilates. Learn a new skill, become obsessed with something new that serves you and brings value to your life. You could start a business or a passion project. That would be a really great use of your time. And for those little micro breaks, that's what I love having something like my Kindle app for, because there's going to be times when I'm stuck in a really long lineup and I don't want to just sit there twiddling my thumbs, but I also don't want to do something soul-sucking like doom scrolling. So instead, I always have an ebook going and I either have my Kindle with me or my Kindle app on my phone, and I can do some reading. Or if you're, in the middle of your workday and you just need a brain break. First of all, doom scrolling is not a break for your brain. It's actually sending it into overdrive. So that's counterintuitive. So instead, you could do something like some adult coloring, or if you have a knitting project, you could work on that for 5 minutes. Or do something with your hands, like make a healthy snack and put on your favorite song and listen to that for a few minutes. Or, of course, you could call a friend or a loved one because that's a wonderful way to spend your time. Now, something so important that you need to understand is that how you spend the first few minutes of your morning is how you spend the rest of your day, specifically as it relates to dopamine. So if you start your day by this, you roll over in your bed, you grab your phone, you start scrolling, that's how your brain will want to crave dopamine for the rest of the day. If you instead get up and you reach for your journal, you turn your night light on, and you start writing down all the things that you're grateful for the first 5 minutes that your eyes are open in the day, that is going to have a significantly different impact on how you go about your day. The mornings are crucial. You must treat them with respect and treat them with how you want the rest of your day to go. Similarly, your brain does a lot of work overnight, so you should not be on your phone whatsoever for the last couple minutes, but really I mean at least the last hour before you go to bed. That is not the state that you want your brain to be in while it's resting, because your brain is very influential while it's sleeping. The things I talk about in this video genuinely from the bottom of my heart changed my life. And don't forget to sign up for my newsletter down below. There's nothing worse than a crappy newsletter, so I promise not to send you one. See you next time.